Welcome to the CISSP Cyber Training Podcast, where we provide you the training and tools you need to pass the CISSP exam the first time. Hi, my name is Sean Gerber, and I'm your host for this action-packed, informative podcast. Join me each week as I provide the information you need to pass the CISSP exam and grow your cybersecurity knowledge. All right, let's get started. Hey all, Sean Gerber with CISSP Cyber Training, and hope you all are having a beautifully blessed day today. Today is an amazing day. Yes, today is CISSP Question Thursday. So we are going to be getting into some questions as it relates to Domain 4.1.2, and we're going to be going into those questions as it related to the podcast that occurred on Monday. So as we talk about before, we have the podcast on Monday, followed by questions over the topics that were occurred on Monday. So that's what we're going to get into. But before we do, we have a news article that we want to kind of quickly go over. And I want to bring this up just because of the fact that I saw an article, and I think it was in Drudge. They had mentioned that the ransomware attackers are no longer necessarily going after your data. They're more or less going after to burn it down. And we've been seeing to the point of there's a lot of criminals that are going after corporations that just want to burn it to the ground rather than actually steal the money or get data out of it. If they can get ransomware, but the money out of those things, they will. But in reality, the ultimate goal is just to kind of cover their tracks and burn everything down. Well, I say all that because there was a vodka. This is in InfoSec Security Magazine or Info Security Magazine. There is a vodka giant, air quotes. I don't know what that actually means, but I assume that if they're having the kind of money we're talking about, they're relatively large in size. But the giant Stoli files for bankruptcy after a ransomware attack. Now, there is a little bit of story behind all this. Stoli is a Russian company that is now in the United States. So when you have a former Russian company, especially in vodka, and you have left Russia and you're now working in the United States, you become a target for the Russian government. And it has been known, and they kind of bring this up in the article a little bit, that the Russian government will turn a blind eye if their attackers are going after Russian assets on foreign soil. So that little bit of the drama is there. But in reality, I don't think it just demonstrates the overall capabilities of this. So the Stoli Group and their CEO, Chris Caldwell, they revealed that they had a filing around a $78 million debt. So they're going into bankruptcy because they have this debt that they cannot basically take care of. And they had a severe disruption, is what they call it, to their firm's IT infrastructure due to the ransomware attack. And one of the things I think is an important part to kind of think about with this is the fact that it went after their ERP system was disabled, and most of their internal processes, including accounting functions, were forced into a manual entry mode, which basically means they were not able to get those restored before the first quarter of 2025. And why is this important? Well, because they have to file a paperwork with the United States government around the overall, I don't know how to say it, their financial aspects of their company. This is an important part because now it comes down to is, okay, let's say you're able to recover and get your systems back, but it doesn't meet the filing deadlines of the regulatory requirements that you may have. So it adds a whole level of complexity into this issue. So one thing to kind of think about is as you are security professionals talking to your senior leaders within your companies, there is the risk, right? So of going, well, IT will bring it back. It'll come back. But if it doesn't come back in a period of, let's just say 3, 4, maybe even 6 months, how does that impact your regulatory requirements around this? So many people think that, well, okay, it just got nuked. Let's just bring it right back from where it began within a couple of minutes or within maybe even a couple of days, and that's okay. But let's just say it takes a couple months to get that information back. How will that impact you, especially if you are having some sort of regulatory requirements around your paperwork that has to be filed? Will that cause you issues? So in this case here, I think there's a couple different things. One, they are the target of the Russian government, so that obviously makes things very challenging because they have some really good hackers that are going after you. 2 is they didn't have the money to pay up all the expenses that became incorporated because of this ransomware attack. And then 3, they have regulatory requirements that they have to go out and file. So it's a pretty big deal for them. And obviously they filed bankruptcy, but it's a big deal for all of us to be aware of, just especially as this goes into this new phase that I think we're going to continue seeing it happen. And you're, as a security professional, going to be, 1, relied upon to give good advice and expertise, but 2, this is the other part. You could become the scapegoat of going, well, it's your fault while I got hacked. Which it still doesn't solve the fact that they lost $78 million and the CEO will be out of a job. But if they had a security person, I'm sure he or she is probably looking for new employment as well. But that's all on that. But again, it comes right back down to ransomware attacks. You want to avoid those at all costs, and therefore you must have in place a business resiliency plan because you can't avoid them. They're going to happen. It's going to happen to you. You need to make sure that you have briefed up your senior leaders and you have a resiliency plan to address the problem. Okay, let's get into today's questions. Okay, this is Group 8 of Domain 4. If you go to CISSP Cyber Training, you can gain access to this and go and purchase the products that are out there and available to you. I didn't get my Black Friday stuff going in time. Life has been extremely busy. So all of you, just so you know, I will probably have a mini Black Friday thing happening sometime, probably before Christmas, just to be fun and enjoying, right? So just because everybody else is doing Black Friday doesn't mean I have to do it at that time. I can do it at any time. We can do it at any time. So Group 8, let's go get into that. Domain 4. Question 1, which protocol ensures confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity for web traffic, but may still allow certain metadata to be visible? Okay, key term, metadata. A, HTTPS. B, IPsec. C, TLS, or D, SSH. Okay, so what confidentiality, integrity, and authentication of web traffic, another key term, web traffic, what is that? And the answer is A, HTTPS. Now, HTTPS encrypts web traffic, right? You all know that. But it also ensures that its integrity and authenticity is available using the TLS aspects. Now, metadata such as IP addresses, DNS queries, and sometimes the server name indicators will remain visible in HTTPS headers. The TLS and SSH are frameworks for broader use, and IPsec does not specifically focus on the web traffic. So the main thing is out of the key term there is web traffic, and it allows for certain metadata. Yeah, that's it. HTTPS. Okay, question 2. Which protocol protects DNS queries but does not ensure the confidentiality of the query data? So it protects DNS queries but does not ensure the confidentiality of the query data. A, DNSSEC. B, DoH. C, DoT. Or D, SFTP. Now, DoH and DoT, if you're not familiar with it, is DNS over HTTPS, and DoT is DNS over TLS. So which one is it? Okay, again, does not ensure confidentiality of the query data. And the answer is A, DNSSEC. Now, it ensures integrity and authenticity through digital signatures, but does not encrypt the data. In contrast, obviously, DOH and DoT do provide encryption securing the query confidentialities, whether you're dealing with HTTPS or TLS. During a TLS handshake, which of the following steps does not occur? A, server certificate validation by the client. B, negotiation of cryptographic algorithms. C, asymmetric encryption of application data. Or D, generation of a shared session key. So again, during the TLS handshake, which of the following steps does not occur? And the answer is C, asymmetric encryption and application data. So the application data is encrypted using symmetric encryption for efficiency after the session key is established. Asymmetric encryption is only used during the handshake for the key exchange. So I hope that makes sense. Asymmetric encryption of the application data. Question 4. Which secure file transfer protocol inherently requires no additional ports beyond those used for SSH? So again, which secure file transfer protocol inherently requires no additional ports beyond those used for SSH? A, FTPS. B, SFTP. C, SC as in Charlie, P. And D, FTP. So which file transfer protocol inherently has no additional ports beyond those for SSH? And the answer is B, SFTP. Now, Secure File Transfer Protocol operates entirely within the SSH protocol, so you don't need anything other than TCP IP22. FTPS, oh my goodness, this craziness, requires a separate ports, obviously, and you're going to for control and data channels. And you've seen that if you've worked in any sort of the what do they call it? I'm drawing a blank with this. Now, if you're dealing with sort of command line guidance, you'll know that you have to have 2 ports, an additional port if you're using FTPS. But again, SFTP does not. All it requires is TCP port 22. Question 5. Why might HTTPS fail to protect against man-in-the-middle attacks in some scenarios? Again, why might HTTPS fail to protect against man-in-the-middle attacks in some scenarios? A. Weak encryption algorithms. B. Incorrect DNS configurations. C. Certificate trust bypass. Or D. Lack of public key infrastructure. Okay, so HTTPS, right? So we know it's using the certificates, and it's HTTPS, so it's web traffic. So what is that? It is C, certificate trust bypass. So if an attacker can trick you, an individual, or a system potentially into trusting an invalid or malicious certificate, right, compromised by the CA, then the HTTP protections can potentially be bypassed, right? So the other options are less relevant to HTTPS, obviously, so the main purpose would be the certificate trust bypass. So you got to kind of break it down. Question 6, which protocol encrypts authentication data but leaves the rest of the session unencrypted by default? So which protocol encrypts authentication data, so the data going back and forth that authenticates you, but leaves the rest of the session unencrypted by default? A. SSH. B. IPsec. C. Telnet. Or D. Radius. Okay, what encrypts authentication data? It is D. Radius encrypts only the user authentication credentials, i.e. passwords, by default, leaving the other data as usernames and any sort of other information unencrypted. IPsec and SSH encrypt the entire session, while Telnet offers no such encryption whatsoever. So you have to kind of break it down. It'd be easy to bite off on the Telnet. I could see that happening potentially. Somebody going, oh, Telnet doesn't have it, and they grab it. But it is Radius, because Radius does have encryption within the authentication methods, but does not have it for the data. Question 7, which port does the LDAP, your Active Directory protocol, use when securing traffic with StartTLS? Okay, all caps, StartTLS. So which port of the LDAP protocol use when securing traffic with StartTLS? Okay, port 389, port 636, A, port 389, B, port 636, C, port 443, or D, port 22. So LDAP protocol, when using secure traffic with StartTLS. If you don't know, you're going, okay, well, it'd be easy to go, I'll glob onto 443. Well, don't do that. Yeah, you might glob onto one of the easier ports, and then you can break it down and go, well, okay, because if you don't know, is it 389 or is it 636? So StartTLS upgrades plain text LDAP traffic, so basically your Active Directory traffic, on port 389 to an encrypted traffic. Port 636 is used for LDAP over SSL. So that would be something which is called LDAPS. LDAP with an S at the end of it. So you're going to have to kind of understand which is the difference. This might be a question that if you don't know, you're going to end up having to guess. So think about that. But it was good to kind of get as much exposure as you can around this piece of information. But again, port 389 is encrypted traffic on StartTLS, whereas port 636 is for LDAP over SSL, which is LDAPS, not StartTLS. Question 8. Which of the following is true regarding IPsec transport and tunnel modes? Okay, which is true regarding IPsec tunnel and transport and tunnel modes? A. Tunnel mode encrypts the entire IP packet, while transfer mode encrypts only the payload. B. Transport mode encrypts the entire IP packet, while tunnel mode only encrypts the payload. B or C. Both modes encrypt only the payload, but use different key exchange mechanisms. Or D. Neither mode provides encryption, but only authentication data. Okay, so you're going to break all this down. Which is the following is true regarding IPsec transport and tunnel modes? And the answer is A. Tunnel mode encrypts the entire IP packet, while transport encrypts only the payload. So if you kind of break it down, you think about it, it would make sense, right? A tunnel, you're going inside a tunnel, you think everything would be encrypted. If you're in a transport, you're like on the back of a flatbed truck, and you're just doing only part of it. So kind of think of it that way. Try to break down the question as much as you possibly can. So in tunnel mode, the original IP packet is encapsulated and encrypted entirely. In transport mode, only the payload of the original IP packet is encrypted, and then leaving the rest of the header intact. So just kind of, that's the differences between the two. Question 9. Why might enabling TLS 1.0 or 1.1 on a web server create a security risk? So again, you have TLS 1.1 and 1.11. There's just 1.1, not 1.1, just 1.1. If I haven't confused you yet, I've confused myself. So again, why would you enable, what would happen if you did that? A, lack of certificate validation. B, use of deprecated ciphers that are vulnerable to attack. C, no support for server-side encryption. Or D, incompatibility of modern browsers. Okay, so modern browsers obviously can handle 1.1 and 1.0. However, the answer is B. Use of deprecated ciphers make them vulnerable to attack. Obviously, right now we're talking in 1.2 and 1.3 are the most current TLS ciphers out there. They are 1.0 and 1.1 are vulnerable to the beast attack and lack support for modern encryption algorithms. So they have been deprecated. Do not use them. Question 10. Which statement about HSTS is incorrect? Which statement about HSTS is incorrect? Okay, so HSTS enforces HTTPS connections to prevent downgrade attacks. B. HSTS requires client support to be effective. C. HSTS policies are delivered in HTTP headers. Or D. HSTS encrypts all HTTP headers by default. So which statement about HSTS is correct? Oh my gosh, too many acronyms. So HSTS does not encrypt HTTP headers. So that's what's incorrect about it. Instead, it enforces the use of HTTPS and prevents insecure HTTP connections. Encryption is handled by TLS. So again, the most incorrect one of HSTS is it encrypts all HTTP headers by default. That's the all part. Think of that. If you don't know, focus on all. Might kind of help guide you down that direction. What is a key limitation on using DoH or DoT for securing DNS queries? Okay, so we're talking about, again, DNS over HTTPS and DNS over TLS. So what is the limitation for doing so? A, DoH does not encrypt DNS queries. B, DoH requires on additional ports beyond HTTPS. C, DoH can obscure DNS filtering mechanisms. Or D, DoH requires certificates issued by a trusted CA. So what is the key limitation of DoH over DoT for securing a DNS query? So again, HTTPS over TLS. What's the difference? And the answer is C. It can obscure DNS filtering mechanisms. So it encrypts DNS queries over HTTPS, which can bypass traditional DNS filtering solutions because the queries appear as regular HTTPS traffic. So that's why the filtering may not work, is because it's looking like a traditional web traffic that is encrypted. Question 12. Which of the following uses symmetric encryption in IPsec? A, ESP encapsulating security payload. B, AH, which is your authentication header. C, IKE, India Kilo Echo, which is your Internet Key Exchange, phase 1. And then D, digital signatures. So which of the following symmetric encryption in IPsec? It uses symmetric encryption, I should say. And the answer is ESP, A, Encapsulation Security Protocol. Okay, so this is where it is IPsec provides confidentiality through symmetric encryption and also supports integrity and authentication. AH only provides authentication and integrity. So your following a symmetric encryption for IPsec is ESP, Encapsulation Security Protocol. And again, if you're not real sure, then kind of think about the whole part of this of going, well, if you don't know the key exchange, that really doesn't deal with the overall IPsec aspects. Authentication headers doesn't really have security in the name as far as you would think. Digital signatures, you could potentially bite off on that maybe if you didn't know. But then when it comes right down to ESP, the encapsulation security payload, you get IPsec and IPsec tunnel. You might want to consider that when you're trying to filter it out if you don't truly know. Which attack can HTTPS not directly prevent? So which attack can HTTPS not directly prevent? A, replay attacks. B, phishing attacks. C, eavesdropping attacks. Or D, traffic tampering. And the answer is B. HTTPS secures data in transit and prevents eavesdropping or tampering, but does not protect users from phishing attacks, obviously. So it doesn't really help you. Now, they could make it look like, oh, look, it's HTTPS. I should be safe. Yeah, well, Yeah, don't do that. But when it comes right down to it, a phishing attack, that's a social engineering thing, and yeah, the HTTPS will not save you from that. Question 14, what primary reason to use PFS, perfect forward secrecy, in TLS? And we've talked about PFS a couple times, or many times on this podcast, but the primary reason to use PFS in TLS, what would you do that for? A, to prevent session hijacking. B, to ensure encrypted traffic cannot be decrypted retroactively. C, to increase the speed of TLS handshake. Or D, to validate server identity. So again, what's the primary reason for use of PFS? It is B, to ensure encrypted traffic cannot be decrypted retroactively. Now, we deal with this. We talk about the keys being stolen by unnamed individuals or unnamed countries, keeping this for the future of basically they're hijacking all the data they can so that when the data can be encrypted or can be deciphered using various new techniques, then what'll happen is they'll just pull it out of the shelf and they'll try to decrypt it and they'll say, haha, we have all this information. But this is where perfect forward security will help eliminate that, and as far as the intercepted session. So they can't be decrypted anymore. So anyway, that is there. Question 15, the final melon. What is it? What does the air quotes secure in HTTP guarantee? HTTPS guarantee. A, the site is free from malware. B, the server is legitimate and connection is encrypted. C, the website's content is accurate and trustworthy. Or D, the server will always use the latest encryption algorithms. Okay, so all those three of the four are like, yeah, no. But the answer is B, the server is legitimate and the connection is encrypted. So again, that's a secure HTTPS guarantee, it is legitimate. It actually exists and the connection is encrypted. That being said, if you go to a bad site that has HTTPS, that doesn't mean that the content on the site isn't bad. So, but that's one thing to think about. All right. Thanks so much for joining today. And we're so excited that you're part of CISSP cyber training. If you have any questions at all, please head on out to CISSPcybertraining.com. Go check it out. All this stuff is out there and available to you. You got the content, all the questions, they are available, and it's just, again, small fee for a lot of the stuff. But if you want the free stuff's on my site and on YouTube as well. So you can get free stuff if you want. You don't need to go to the site and purchase it, but if you want more content, yes, that's where you would need to go. Also go to reducecyberrisk.com. Yes, reducecyberrisk.com is obviously my consulting website, and if you are interested or need a consultant for cybersecurity aspects within your company, from insider risk to virtual CISOs, you name it, you can get a hold of me, and I am happy to look at what you got, and we'll have a little chat. So again, reducecyberrisk.com. Okay, have a wonderful day, and we will catch you all on the flip side. See ya.